It's my pleasure to invite the panelists on stage now. We have with us Dr. Anuradha Bhatia, Head of Technology, Standard Chartered India. Can I have a round of applause for Dr. Bhatia? We have with us Aliasgar, Karachiwala, EVP and IT Head, Applications Automation and AI and Business Solutions Group from RBL Bank. We have with us Mahendra, Bindra, Head of Customer Excellence at Unity Small Finance Bank. And to provide the industry perspective, we have with us Angira, Agrawal, Head GTM and Strategy of India Business from Exotel. I'll like to start with a very generic question and open to all the panelists. See, end of the day, when we look at every bank, the ultimate aim is to enhance the customer service experience. So, and obviously banks being one of the sectors which has been on the forefront of technology deployment, that has been one area which been looking at different facets of technology, even for providing customer services. My question to each panelist, and I'll start with you, Anuradha. What are the key technology measures that as a bank you are adopting in today's environment, which can be a competitive parameter for you to sort of retain customers and enhance their experience in with the bank, their experience with the bank?
Okay, thank you and good morning all. Thanks for joining us, I think, first panel. I think generically I'll not focus on what our bank does, but generically I think across the organizations, what is important for me is if I'm talking about a customer experience, a very generic, how many of you have observed that after you do a transaction or on a mobile banking app or an internet banking app, there's a feedback? How many of us give it generously? None of us. No? You do, okay. I can see one hand going up. I do it with a rating, but obviously sometimes we don't put the comments. But I'll request each one of you, if you can going ahead, do that, because that's where we get our feedbacks from. What is going well, what is not going well, is one of the experiences that as a bank, I think all of us have those feedback mechanisms there for us to capture them. And then there is a sentiment analysis which goes at top of it to say what you liked, what you didn't like, or what worked well, what did not work well. So I think that is one customer experience that we are looking to enhance that. So I'll request each one of you, whenever there is a next transaction that you do, for any bank that you transact with, please give your generous feedback. I can feel that sometimes when your transactions aren't going well or something is not going too good, I think we have seen feedbacks coming from all the activities that are done across are long, descriptive feedbacks. It is very difficult to take out the sentiment. So we try to, go by words and say, okay, what is good, what is bad? That is one part of it. And then where you feel we could improve. So that is something I think it is to enhance a customer experience, which is important for all the organizations to do. So this is something important. And sir, with the latest technologies coming up, I think all the organizations will like to track like how our regular e-commerce websites do. If you have reached a particular journey in your online banking and you left it midway, we would like to track and come back to you with a relationship manager saying, sir, you left your journey here, would you like to continue? Or did you do your investment? That is a...
So primarily, your initial focus is on leveraging technology to have a feedback mechanism in place, and important to track that feedback mechanism.
So feedback mechanism is there in all the banks if you see. I think we as clients are not giving the feedback.
Okay. Basically ensuring that's where the tracking that mechanism comes in place, ensuring that more mechanism. So we'll go into slightly more detail on that later on how conversational experience can help in that case. I'll come to Aliasgar with the same question on basically in terms of the measures adopted by banks to enhance customer experience.
Good morning, everyone. I think I'll just stretch on what Anuradha said, and then I'll give a few points which I had thought of, sharing with all of you. One is, the feedback which Anuradha spoke of is actually very critical. Especially, most of us use it extensively when we travel. We book any resort, we book any hotel, we book any flight, we see the reviews. If there are no reviews, how you will come to know? So hence that particular point which Anuradha highlighted is very important, because even as bank or any other institution, we would like to know. And there are various your banks are actually giving you, but there are other platforms also we share the feedback. Coming back to the various measures which we are talking about, I think the demand of the customers are changing. And possibly it's the institution themselves who has actually instigated that demand, which has resulted back to the institution to deliver more and more. See, long back, let's look at channels. Okay, I think my parents, for them, bank was only the branch. There was nothing beyond branch. Then came ATMs, contact center, support, etc. Now we have MoBank, internet banking, now voice bots, AI-powered voice bots, chat bots. Look, it's increasing and increasing and increasing. Some of the banks are actually doing that wearable technologies, not all. But at least MoBank, the mobile banking or internet banking is basic. Now you cannot think of any bank who doesn't have this, right? So these are some of the basic measures which is being given to the customers over and above, so digitization, not just the transaction, but even the account opening is now being digital. Either most of them are DIY, do it yourself. Either it's on a certain portal, it's on a tab, mobile, etc. So all these things are available. Banks are also not working to provide you the front-end channels, but they are also working on measures to automate their back-end processes. It's not only about giving, customer ko khush kar do ek acha front-end banakar. No, it's not about that. It's also about automating my back-end processes so that things which were being delivered to you in 3 days and 7 days, okay, typically the response of any agent or any person at the branch is 7 working days, 4 working days. We are moving from 7 working days to 4 working days to 1 working day to instantaneous gratification. So I think those are the measures. Few examples, other set of investments which certain banks are doing, most of the banks are doing are, there are some smart customers who shift credit cards. One of the reasons for shifting credit cards is actually their reward points. Because you get better reward points, better output in certain credit cards, you will find they shifting. If travel karna hai, so they are regular traveler, they will move to a particular card which offers that particular foreign currency, etc. Some are shopping, some are dining, some are who's tied up with Swiggy. So the decision are also taken basis. So the loyalty program, the investment in loyalty program has become how the communication is happening from the bank side. Most of the communication now which is happening from bank, to you is almost real time. Earlier, we used to get messages at the end of the day or possibly the next day. Now we are getting instantaneous. OTP, obviously, we get instantly. But even the transaction messages are instantaneous. The investment in security, securing your own data, securing your own money, securing your own transactions, those are huge investments which the banks are doing. And all this is for what? For customers. Right. So these are I think I'm talking more from an investment and what initiatives banks are taking to take care of their customers.
So you have touched upon the point which will again come later in the discussion about an omni-channel delivery mode of reaching out to customers, because as you rightly said, it's no more just a brick and mortar branch the banks are anymore. Great. Mahendra, I'll come to you next with your views on the measures undertaken for customer enhancement.
Yeah, thanks. And good morning. First session I'm pretty sure all are awake. So, little different way of looking at the question about, you know, not just Unity Small Finance Bank, which I represent, but overall in a banking, what's happening. I think at least what I've heard in the last 6 to 12 months, I think at a board level, there's a very clear message that is going down that over a period of time, banking as an industry, the banking part of the bank would become a commodity, right? The only differentiator would be the customer experience. Now, a lot of different banks and different organizations have different terms to say customer experience. Some say customer experience, some say customer excellence, somebody uses customer delight, somebody says customer service. At the end of the day, it's all about making our customer happy, making your customer happy. So I think the importance of customer experience and customer delight cannot be more important in today's day and age of hyper digitalization, simply because there is no longer a need for a customer to visit a branch if he has to do anything. In fact, you can do end-to-end banking without ever visiting to a branch, except if you have to do some locker transaction that we cannot do sitting at home. So I think when we talk about customer experience, I think there are two views which I clearly see. There is an inside out view and there is an outside in view. And most of the time I have seen these don't match with each other, right? So the priorities internally are about, one, reducing cost, two, automating for reducing cost, and three is what I see lately is the FOMO. So if one bank has launched a Gen AI bot, thanks to people like, Exotel and few other brands, who are hammering banks saying, A bank is doing this, B bank is doing this, you're going to lose out on the race. So there's a huge amount of FOMO which is getting created. And there was a recent article which clearly mentioned that 30% of AI projects on a long-term basis will not be viable, right? The ROI is not going to be viable, right? I'm not sure whether you'll be happy to hear that or not, but right. So I think, and the outside in view, at least what we have gathered and what we have understood is, it's very clear. Customer wants simplicity, right? If he wants to do a transaction on a mobile app of a bank, he wants to do it in 3 clicks. If the customer wants to call a call center of a bank, he wants to get connected in the third ring or 20 seconds or 15 seconds. If a customer wants to do a transaction on internet banking, he wants to do it in less than a minute, less than 60 seconds. So I think simplicity is where is going to be the key, right? The second thing I think briefly Ali and Sir touched upon is about omni-channel, right? I think gone are the days where things was one size fit all, right? It's going to be there going forward. Even today, one size cannot fit all. So I think each one of us, each bank or each brand has to have personas and cohorts of customers, right? Just to give an example, what we are trying to do. So we have very large base of senior citizen customers. What we basically see, these customers are not the ones who wants to use our app. They don't want to chat. They want to call our call center. And just to give you a perspective, a senior citizen average handle time, which we typically call AHT in our contact center terminology, is about 12 to 15 minutes compared to a 4 minutes of a typical AHT. The second thing, these people wants to visit our branch. They want to come, have a cup of tea, do a lot of chit chat, do banking transaction as well. But they want that. Probably because they don't have too many people at home to speak to, and they don't have too much meaningful work in their life. That's the reason they want to look at that. The second cohort is people, the millennials, where they don't want to visit the branch. They don't want to call a call center. They want your app to be a one-stop shop for everything. So I think to keep it short, and I think the idea is very simple. Create cohorts of customers, create personas of customers, make sure you are there where they want to communicate or touch base with you. Keep it simple, make it simple for them, make it easy for them. I know there have been some feedback where some of the customers I spoke to, they said, of course, I'm not going to take names of those banks, but they say, "Ki sir, when we call the call center, it's very difficult to speak to a human because wo itna complicated hai IVR, it's very difficult to get a human being, right?" I think these are the things which brand have to think, that at the end of the day, whether you are AI, Gen AI, Super Gen AI in the future, you cannot take the human element out of it. So the humanized approach is very, very critical, because end of the day, whether you are a senior citizen or a millennial, you are a human and you will remain a human. That would be my few thoughts to begin with.
Okay, great. So, if what you were saying in terms of having a human element attached to the technology, if I look at it from the bank's perspective, an important aspect is profiling your customer. We'll come to that later. First, I'll come to Angira now. You have heard from the three banks. Now, in terms of as a solution provider for the banks, what I would like you to respond to is how a solution provider, one can sort of help in that journey. And we also heard one about the costs. Then it can't be one-ton technology. There has to be a human element. So looking at these different factors, how can a solution provider help banks in this respect?
Sure. So, good morning, everyone. I have to strike a balance. Just after this, I have a presentation, and I don't want to start talking about the slides because that is what is circling around in my mind. And when you ask that point, Mahendra, I'll speak about it in the, I think, second or third slide. One of the things that I fundamentally believe in is that tech for the sake of tech has no value, right? Again, I'll speak about this in the presentation, but if I were just to rewind a few years back, we all used to spend time on YouTube, right? What's the alternate that everyone spends time on today? Insta, right? Instagram. I was told it's supposed to be pronounced, called Insta, not Instagram. Otherwise, I'll appear the age that I am, right? But a lot of us spend time on Insta, right? And why? It's short, right? In shorts is big. Everything has become shorter. And that's the human DNA that's changing. We are bloody impatient, or rather the newer generation is very impatient. And that's where the fintechs, for example, have started to disrupt what is happening. The challenge with some of the legacy, and I'm not using it in any incorrect form, but the legacy institutions, BFSI institutions that have invested heavily in tech is, you are so deeply embedded, you can't let go of that, right? Revamping that, considering the newer tech that is coming in, considering the regulations that exist, and the regulators are extremely hard to get violated. I've heard horror stories about what happens to employees if some violation happens. The way we come in as a provider is, how do we bring in newer tech? We bring in best practices from across what various organizations are doing, and be able to plonk it in a manner that enhances customer experience consistently, right? So that's one thing that we as a solution provider are able to do, bring in best practices. And the other part we are able to do is not necessarily from the BFSI industry. We are also able to bring it from outside the industry. Finally, it's about customer experience. I think Aliasgar, you spoke, or Mahendra, you spoke about customer experience is a differentiator that exists today, right? The fact is, it's across industries. It's not only banking, right? And I'm fond of cars, so I'm going to use that example. If I call up and say, I want to visit a showroom for a car, and they say, you can't come today, you have to come tomorrow or day after, there's a very high probability I'll not waste my time, because most cars are similar, right? So the same. So that's where the instantaneous part comes in, right? So customer experience is critical. Solution providers, the earlier adopters used to be BFSI. Now it's a lot of the digital native companies in whichever space they are. I'll call it X-tech, whether fintech, edtech, whatever tech. But they are the ones who are actually creating disruption. So can some of those best practices be brought into some of the industries that have invested a couple of decades ago, and it's difficult for them to get rid of that. Can a layer be created on top of it? So that's something that we at Exotel do very well. The other part that we also look at is, and I'll again speak about it in my presentation, is the whole omni-channel piece. We speak about it, but is it omni-channel or is it multi-channel? And there's a huge difference in that. We often assume multi-channel is omni-channel. That's not correct. I, as a consumer, again, because I'm impatient, if I am chatting and I need to get onto a phone call with an agent, at that point of time, I want the agent to know what was the communication that happened on the chat. If that doesn't seamlessly transition and the agent again asks me, "Good morning, sir, could you explain to me the problem? What's the CSAT score going to be?" It's going to be poor, right? So that's the true omni-channel piece that a lot of organizations struggle with, again, because the traditional systems were siloed. A lot of BFSI institutions are bringing that together, and that's something that we are able to help with and help stitch the journey together. So I'll stop here, but there's more that I'll speak about later on.
Thanks. Thanks, Angira. Okay. Okay. So we heard around from each of the panelists on and got some specific pointers. I'll come back to Anuradha with one of the pointers. Very important thing is this customer profiling. And when we are talking about technologies, Gen AI is perhaps the most talked about thing today. So how would analytics and Gen AI being leveraged by banks to do customer profiling, and just not for the sake of it? What we have heard is it's very critical. Without a proper and accurate customer profiling, banks won't be able to achieve some of the things that we talked about. So how are you going about that?
I think when we speak about customer profiling, I'll take a second back and say how human in the loop is important. As we were talking, I think as Angira was talking, the audio was not that clear. So there was a human in the loop who heard, yes, it is not. He immediately came and replaced the mic. Right? So any system, whether it is AI, Gen AI, human in the loop, I cannot take it away. Yes, when I talk about data, when I talk about analytics, when I talk about profiling, it is important. But at the layer of my analytics, being a part of data and analytics team, it is important for us to have the complete data with us. And then we start profiling with reference to your behavior. Now, how much of a behavior is categorized with reference to what are your spends, and only not the data that you share with us on the banking transactions, also your alternate data. I think at the time of AI, when we are tracked at everything that we do, how much we spend at different, I can say, channels, whether we are shopping on clothing or the mobile phones or electronics or accessories, all the data and profiling is done. And then we try to segregate in terms of different layers. One is age group, one is your spend pattern, and then we try to offer you, like you receive your SMSs, right? Your credit card limit is increased. It is not that you're just receiving that message. There is some analytics done at the back end that you've been spending a lot on a credit card, and I think now we can increase your credit card limit, and with these XYZ offers, because you've been spending on clothing, so maybe you can go and then you have an offer that you can redeem whatever vouchers given to you for that particular clothing brand. So yes, the profiling helps, and let's say we have two customers of the same profile. Maybe I can consider the two tables here. We see that, okay, the profiling is the same. Can we offer cross-selling a product? If you have like I think we all have those features in Netflix. You watch a particular movie, they immediately tell you, okay, the other person watched with your similar taste or similar flavor, they watched another movie. So maybe it's a recommendation. So we're trying to build those recommendation systems. We may not be able to give you immediately on the channels, but yes, there is an RM. When we talk about Gen AI, On the feature, the next step, recommendation systems, many companies have come out with their profiling engines called, give it to the RM. During the conversations, RMs, the bot will record the conversation, hear you out, and immediately recommend to the RM, see, with this particular customer's profile, the X and the Y customers have bought this product. Can you immediately propose it? So the person doesn't have to wait for the products being offered to him over the call if it is with the RM. We have still not reached the stage where we are able to offer it on the online channels, because still for us to grow as an industry. But yes, this is how AI and Gen AI is going to help, but data at the base is very important.
Okay.
So this is how profiling is helping us moving on, cross-selling the products.
Thanks. An interesting, if I may say, use case of profiling. Aliasgar, just as an Anuradha mentioned about the cross-selling, leveraging that profile. So when all these KYCs are being done by the banks, what are the innovations? It can be cross-selling or upselling or whatever, or any other innovations that banks are planning. And again, one important thing which came out is the costs. So within the costs involved, not to overshoot the budget, how are banks planning those innovations around within the budgetary constraints?
I think budget is another story. I think that will take a pretty long, because we need to get our things right. There are a lot of fintechs, okay, and there are a lot of senior folks, okay, here. So the cost you got to manage, and you need to decide what you want to start first. Accordingly, you will be able to decide. If you start with the fintech, I'm sure you will get the price what you want, and if you have experienced institutions, then the cost is a little different. Anyway, that's a different. So cost is something which can be managed depending on the approach which you take. CapEx, OpEx, multiple variants of that. So I will not get there right now. I want to give actually a very interesting example of Gen AI. And it is something which is implemented. It is not on the books. It's not for discussion. This is, I'm talking about something which after implementing it. We know all banks have the contact centers. Typically, contact centers will have a QC team. What does the QC team do? They do sampling of those calls. They will listen to those calls, either the recorded calls or live calls. They will give feedback to the agent. They will see the performance of the agent. They will see that if the customer query was being answered, if the correct ticket was logged, if there was any correct lead was logged, whatever the 10, 15 checkpoints are there, they follow that. Now, this is generally a reasonably big team, around 5%, 10% of the overall resources which are deployed in the contact center. Okay. Doing the QC job on a sampling basis. Now, there are many Gen AI, and I'm using the word not AI, Gen AI specifically, which has a capability of speech to text analytics. I mean, we have seen, Copilot, giving whatever meetings which we are doing in Microsoft Teams can do a transcription, etc. Right. So we are kind of aware in our own way, in our own meetings, Copilot does offer, there are many others which offer the transcription services. If these recorded calls are being done or dumped or uploaded on those product, and we get the transcription and the services, and we build our own rules on top of it, that product gives us exactly the scoring of what we need from the QC. Not only we save the resources, but we are able to actually address any open audit points and give this response to the auditor, regulator, okay, that this is how the QC is being. It also identifies individual issues at the agent level. Okay, what is the quality which is missing in this agent, at the agent level, at the organization level, at the unit level, at the product level, multiple levels. So, and this entire thing, you can add one more nuance to it. the same story, same analysis. You add one, was there any cross-sell opportunity? Sometimes while talking, the customer says, "Nee, I had to pay off my loan, so I need another that is high interest rate." There are multiple conversations which the agent who is earning 15,000, 20, 25,000 salary will not be able to gauge that from a bank point of view. This analysis, when you do a speech to text, transcription to summary to all the outputs, what we want, because you define the rules, what you want out of that data. When you get that, okay, and then you get actual right set of customers who are looking for a particular product. Maybe somebody is, breaking an FD. When typically somebody breaks, prematures an FD, it means either he's in need of money or he's looking for an alternate investment. Generally, right? So if he's in need of money, you can always offer him a personal loan, okay, or alternate investments, mutual funds, whatever you want to. But that's a lead. Will the agent capture it? He may not even understand. I don't expect him to understand. He's the fresher. Right. So I think this is one thing. I have a few examples, but I think due to paucity of time, I will pass this right now.
Sure. And that's great. In fact, that's what I was looking at, the use cases for such innovations being used. Mahendra, I'll come to you.
I just want to stop
sure.
for a minute. Have you seen my presentation?
No.
I think you have. The organizers have leaked it to you. Is it?
Then we are thinking on the same lines.
Great. It's great minds think alike. And one thing, when we are talking about these innovations around upselling and cross-selling, from a business point of view, from a bank's perspective, everything about these technology things cannot be done by the banks themselves. So either partnership or collaboration with fintechs or other NBFCs, if I may say, to collaborate. What are the challenges there in this partnership from the customer experience point of view? I want to restrict to their collaborating with these different entities. When these co-branding things we are talking about, that's normally done with either the NBFCs or the fintechs rather more.
I think it's a very valid question in the current context. I think people who are from banking industry would know. I think RBI has been on front foot in the last 6 to 12 months, right? In terms of the kind of action we see from RBI, I think. But one thing is very, very important, that today and going forward, bank and fintechs will coexist. I think what is happening, I think what some part of the industry tried to do is fintech felt that they will replace the bank, and that's not going to happen. Fintech cannot replace a bank. At the same time, a lot of banks didn't adopted the fintech model, and they realized that it's not going to work simply because there is a difference at a DNA level. A DNA of a bank will be very different from a DNA of a fintech. In fintech, you will see people hustling and using first principles. They are going to be launching product almost every week, every month, which you cannot see happening at a bank level, right? So I very clearly see in the industry, fintech and bank will coexist, right? From a business point of view, I think it's a win-win for bank and it's a win-win for fintech. What fintech brings to the table is agility, more speed. What banks bring to the table is the credit and the underwriting, so on and so forth, right? From a business standpoint, I think both will coexist and will benefit each other. The fintech will benefit by, having more revenue, more profits, and getting more customers to the bank. And of course, the bank will also profit. I think where I see the customer benefiting from this is better product, a better service, and, because there is going to be a hell lot of a competition that's going to happen, and everybody will try to compete with each other. I think at the end of the day, any competition is beneficial for the customer at the end of the day. So I think that's where I think that is one part. The second part, quickly, I want to add, the challenge is I think the fintech side of the industry has not really adapted the regulation part. I think that's where they are struggling, right? People try to push the envelope, and they fall and they realize and things have to be pulled back. I think if that balance can be maintained by fintechs, while they are very good at launching things and so on and so forth, and doing pilots after pilots, if they can just bake in or adapt the regulation part, I think the journey is going to be much more smooth. I think it's right now it's little bumpy.
Okay, thanks. A very apt description of the compatibility that has to exist between banks and fintechs, and the challenges, especially from the regulatory aspects. That Angira, now again, you heard about the innovations around the customer profiling. You heard about the lot of innovative use cases, the collaboration between fintechs and banks in this respect. Again, from a solution provider perspective, what's your role in as another stakeholder in that ecosystem? What will be your role?
So when you started asking about partners, Rajneesh, one of the things that I really hate is when someone calls me a vendor. Okay. And the reason I hate it is because then I'll behave like one. I will be at arm's length. I'll sell you my solution and walk away. And say it's up to you, whichever the team is, business team, tech team, to ensure that it works for you. I don't have any stake in it working for you, right? So one of the things that we very actively do is to work very closely with the teams, both the user teams and the tech teams, to see that they actually are able to realize the business goals that they set out to adopt the tech for. So the earlier statement that I had made saying that tech for the sake of tech has no value. And I know I was mentioning to Anuradha earlier on that as a consumer, I'm a big pain. And if something doesn't work for me, I will go arrest the hell out of the service provider that I'm working with, right? So how can we improve that? And one of the things that we as a service provider are trying to do very actively, and of course Gen AI has helped, everyone talks about it, is how do we help banking institutions, because there are multiple products to offer, right? Bank account is one, there are personal secured loans, there is credit cards, for example, multiple other products that can be offered. How do we help them get a unified view within, of course, the regulatory norms of the consumer across channels that they are in? So how can we establish a context that is across channels? And Anuradha did touch upon it in terms of building a recommendation. So how can we, because we also as a provider run the communication part, how can we establish a context, summarize it, so that when the agent is talking to a customer, they are able to be more proactive in terms of the communication they need to have. One. Second, the agents are also assisted to know what to say. So the recommendation is not only from the agent to the customer, but also to the agent, right? And there are two layers to it. I don't have the actual statistics, but to retain a customer versus new customers being added, I'm sure new customers being added year on year will be single-digit percentage. Yeah. 2x, right? But from a business growth perspective, new business coming from new customers will be a single digit as a percentage. It's more about, of course, depends on the stage of the organization. So how do you do more with the existing customer, right? Once you have a relationship, how can you monetize that and make more money is absolutely critical. But that will only happen if the customer is happy and he or she believes that you're actually serving their needs and not your needs, right? There are two sides to a coin. The moment they see that the banking organization is more interested in their needs, there's a wall that will come up, and there's a higher probability that the customer will say, I don't want to work with this organization because they're only interested in making more money out of me, but they're not interested in really serving my needs. And that's become a key part. So that's where a lot of tech that we bring into play is oriented around how do we help an organization understand the various forms of communication that have happened, bring it together and empower the teams, whether they are in a branch, whether they are in a contact center, whether they are in the field, to take more effective decisions to serve the customer. Right? That's the first point that we always think about. And that's where the way we are structured, we spend a lot more time on. Right?
Okay.
So that's how we operate.
Thanks. Thanks. So the last round, I'll come with the panelists, the other important area, and which is more and more relevant to sort of retain customers, area of hyper-personalization, and which is, I may say, more deep down into that profiling thing only, and having more kind of a conversational experience that need not be only the chatbots or the phone calls, the human element part. So how are banks looking at enhancing adopting more hyper-personalization and enhancing the conversational experience part? Anuradha, I'll start.
So when we talk about hyper-personalization, I think I touched upon that only your banking data is not sufficient for us, but we also need your alternate data. When we talk about hyper-personalization, I would like to just highlight one initiative which is done by the government for senior citizens is your life certificate, which senior citizens had to go and submit. Right? I'll touch upon the hyper-personalization on the other side, as you mentioned about, the customer experience there. So I have a father who's 85. And when we were doing that life certificate, in that they touch upon whether, they check whether the person is actually existing. And at that age of 85, a person is not able to read what is written on the screen. And one of the tests is, as you look at the camera, it says, blink your eyes. Okay, and there's no audio support there. It is only written there. And when he's looking at the screen, he actually doesn't know that it is telling him to blink the eyes. So then he says, oh, this experience is not good. I'm not able to, even go through it. And it took me 45 minutes to do that process. It was not that one patch was this. Then I came into the camera and I said, Dad, it's asking you to blink your eyes. If we can have these supports there, an audio message behind it, which talks about, okay, blink your eyes, and the person will know I have to blink my eyes. So these are the small, I think the customer experience, sir, as you mentioned about, it's a great initiative because he doesn't have to go to the bank. But yes, he loves to go to the bank to update his passbook. And he still maintains it because he says it's an experience. Yes, for him, that's the personalized experience, or you can say, sir, hyper-personalized experience for a senior citizen to go. But for our generation and the generation which is 2 to 3 decades before us, we want a quick, personalized thing. We can have personas. We are building personas, but for a group of people. But yes, when we have these LLMs and Gen AIs, they're in the picture which we are building for the banking industry is, for every individual, there's a personalized, I can say, a card coming out or a personalized recommendations coming out which say this is only for you. When a person receives an SMS on a credit card or the vouchers, I can guarantee it's not for everyone. It is personalized. So the hyper-personalization is already in the picture, which we are looking into it. But yes, we are building to refine for a smooth and a best customer experience. Sir, it is a word of the mouth also. When one person experiences, it will tell the other person to join the same bank or create an account because the person had a good personal experience either with the RM or with the digitalization of it. And the second important thing I would like to touch upon is your IVR experience, which I think we need to reduce with more bots speaking to you than human. And I think we have to wait for another 2 minutes by the time the human comes online.
Yeah, exactly. That still remains that pain point. Yes, Ali.
No, I think personalization, let's go a little 10 years back. We were happy, we were happy personalization. Earlier, we used to get emails from our banks or any institution, dear customer, comma, followed by the, we are delighted to have you.
But if I may interrupt here, we earlier talked about the branch banking,
Yep.
the brick and mortar, but those times, the generation she mentioned, there were bank personnel in those branches who used to know. That was sort of profiling the
Absolutely.
that human touch and even what is happening with that person. So that sort of personalization was there in brick and mortar.
Correct.
How do you shift that kind of, if not to that level, but to a manageable
I'm little
extent
pro
digitally?
Gen AI. My friend will like about that. But and not that I'm not for human. Of course, human touch may be required, but I think it will continue to reduce the over a period of time. I get a point. So point is, yes, we were very happy when we started getting emails, dear Mr. Aliasgar Karachiwala, we were very elated. Wow, what service. MX started, followed by City and a few other guys. So we were happy with that. Now that's no more a delight.
Exactly.
It's very basic. मतलब इतना भी नहीं मालूम. मतलब that's too basic. I think the level of data collection which is happening, okay, the level of analytics which is happening on the data, and the data, you have no idea what kind of data is being collected. You have absolutely no clue that, okay, mera ye data bhi available hai. You know, I generally try to give this the example that the battery of your phone, you recharge. So how many times it has count off because you have not charged. Because you have not charged your phone and your battery and your phone has count off, okay, could be one of the underwriting parameters showing that you are responsible or not. Okay, so I'm saying that level of data everybody has. Okay, of course, there is DBTB guidelines which is coming, PCI DSS, multiple things are coming, but data is existing. And basis that data, there is significant analysis and offers are being made to you. The offer which is made to me may not be, though me and Anuradha may be part of the same cohort or profile, but the offer will be very different for her and for me. Very different. Even now we get templated response to our queries.
True.
Okay. But I think with Gen AI, and in fact, we are working on some of the projects here where the response to the email, same set of query, similar profile, but the response, because the way you have written the mail, okay, defines your mood, okay, your sentiment, okay, and my response to that email, it will be done by the bot. It will be done by AI. It will be done by that the entire AI model which we have. Okay, will be very different from what it will get a reply to somebody else. So that conversational discussion is now actually being done by the systems, but we feel it's actually done by a human. And it is exactly our experience with chatbot has been fantastic. It talks to us as if I'm talking to somebody. You know, you can ask anything, and just like a human being, just hang on, or you know, any statement you use, which we use on a daily life, they understand and they respond exactly like that. That's how where we want to be. So the human touch which we want, okay, can also be built here. That's
Okay.
fine.
That's great to know. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Just to add to Ali's thing, even the questions we're asking are not asked by human. We also put it in the chat box and then ask the question.
No.
No, I'm not saying.
There are bots where we define the questions and there are defined answers. Okay, but there you have to build the decision tree and it responds basis that. Typically, such bots are you ask a question, it gives you 5 options, you select one, and then yeah.
I'm saying when I'm asking a bot, maybe I'm not very sure on the English that I'm answering. So you will also put it in the thumb bot and redefine your question.
Correct. And it's a continuous, machine learning is continuous. It'll improve every day.
Sure.
The more the number of queries, the more it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think a lot said on personalization, hyper-personalization. I think the way we look at personalization and hyper-personalization is, one, within the bank, it would be at a product level and at a service level. at a product level, you can only go to an extent and do hyper personalization. You cannot create millions of product because you have millions of customers, right? That's one. But again, that would be more cohort based, persona based product, so on and so forth. I think Ali made few very interesting points, and whether we call it technology, AI, Gen AI, technology is definitely helping a lot, right? So if we just look at the three layers that we have in any bank today, you have your core banking system, which has your data. You have your CRM, whether it's A, B, or C, whichever CRM layer that you have, and then you have the analytics layer. I think both on call, live, where the customer is talking to a contact center of a bank, or whether a customer is talking to an RM, there is a lot of data which gets, which is held to the call center agent or to the RM. How do we can cross-sell, upsell, and provide a very personalized, hyper-personalized service, right? Simple example, as he mentioned about, instead of dear customer to the first name or the first and last name of the customer, right? I think we have moved beyond that. And I think one of the reasons where brands are getting very finicky about hyper-personalization is simply because this generation, the people who are currently between, say, a 21, 22 to about 30, right? People who have just come into the, into that age bracket where they have started earning. I think they are very impatient. They don't want to wait. For them, everything they expect, their aspirational level is very, very high. So if a brand is doing something great, for them, it is given. They want every brand to do great, whether in terms of service, whether in terms of experience, or whether in terms of personalization. And I think that is putting lot pressure on the brands to do more and more and more, because this generation is just not satisfied, right? I remember, just to give a personal example, I personally applied for a rotary phone, the landline phone, for my family, and it took 4 years to come. 4 years. I made that application, and it came after 4 years. Just imagine that today's generation, they don't have 4 seconds. They don't want to wait, right? They expect everything, and I think that's pushing the brands to do more and more. I think, and just to give a color about, I think somewhere, he rightly mentioned about legacy banks and the new age banks. I think what I see when I talk to people in the industry, the legacy banks have very monolithic architecture of data that they have. And I think that's where they are struggling to use a lot of data that they have, and how can they use that data and use the new age technologies and tool and do hyper personalization at scale. I think what is happening is there's a shift that is happening. Every brand is trying to do as much as they can, or which is technically possible in the framework of regulation. But I think it's only going to improve and increase and go deeper and deeper and deeper. I think we are just at the beginning of the curve, where even the Gen AI, I personally feel it's not mature today. I think it's just the beginning of a curve where we will see in the next 5 years, things will be very, very advanced. And I think we'll see some very cutting edge things happening in the industry, at the banking industry as well as other industries. And the only thing I want to close out, I think 30 years back, banks were looked at more as a regulated entity, and there was no comparison done between a bank and, say, e-commerce or, say, any other industry. But I think customer experience has removed that barrier, and now customers expect, whether it is mobility, which is Ola, Uber, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is your food tech, Zomato, Swiggy, or even a bank, they expect a similar service what they get from other brands, without even giving a thought that they are not regulated entities, these are regulated entities. So I think it's a good thing, right, where banks are under tremendous pressure to deliver the kind of experience which is usually delivered by these brands, which are not a regulated entities. And I think things are only going to move in the right direction and a positive direction.
Okay, thanks. So what you are saying is basically, if I may, within quotes, use it as democratization of the customer profile of banks is leading to more democratization. I won't come to you, Angira, now. Last round, 30 seconds to each panelist. The future of customer experience in banking.
Sorry, I'm listening.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak about something, the point that you brought up.
Sure.
I have a question, and I know there are a lot of people here from that industry. With everything we talk about, when I send an email to a bank for something, that email response still says you will be responded to in 24 hours. Why? Why can't it be a bot to respond to me immediately? Right? It's a very simple question. Why can't I get an instantaneous response? So what happens is I have to pick up the phone and call up someone, it increases the cost to serve me, right? Because I want an instantaneous response, right? You agree, Ali, with what I'm saying? No, but you get what I'm saying, right? So that's something that happens, and I've always wondered, why does this take 24 hours? Why is there, you will be responded to in a standard TAT of 24 hours? How many of your systems still do that? I have a very honest question on it. If everyone can be honest and raise their hands, how many of your systems still say that? Right? 24 hours, right? So I don't know why that happens, right? The second point I wanted to touch upon was data. The more data you have about the consumer behavior, the more useful it is. There's also something called DPDP, right? Which is about protection of data. When does data become so much that for a consumer, it becomes creepy, right? You can gather data from all sources, but at some point of time, it becomes creepy. As an example, we have data across industries. So if you're talking about a battery being switching off, I have a view, I would have data about how they communicate with multiple products, but I will never share that with anyone. But I have that data, right? So when does it become creepy? Is something that really needs to be, there has to be a guardrail around that. GenAI, unfortunately, can end up breaking that. So that's also something, a lot of organizations are working around. And I just wanted people to keep that in mind, right?
Thanks. Yeah, starting.
I think you touched upon it. I wanted to say, yes, we are driven by AI, Gen AI, more bots. I think what is important for me and for people here is have the human intelligence be on top of those AIs and Gen AIs. Have your own guardrails. Systems will have guardrails. Organization will create the guardrails. But as humans, let's be more secured. Rather than clicking OK, I think we are so used to clicking OK to anything that comes. So have your own security guardrails, human intelligence to be on top of any AI that comes. I think that is one important takeaway that I want. And I always say security first. On your personal fronts, organizations and government will do it.
Yes, so HI with AI, the security front is absolutely critical, and we have a separate session today in the post-lunch session, obviously. Ali, your 30 seconds.
No, I mean, I'm absolutely a pro tech and innovation guy. So I always would like to explore more and more things, not at the cost of data issues, not at the cost of compromising either data or any kind of values. Okay, we need to be extremely sensitive to because we are one of the most regulated entity amongst all of them. So we need to be conscious of our responsibilities. At the same time, work on technologies because just 30 seconds. I'll take 10 seconds more. Fintech is, I feel, fintech are born because of the delay on the part of the banks. True. Had the banks done their job much faster, much more agile, fintech wouldn't have born. So I think we need to catch up that speed. Okay, we need to deliver faster. Otherwise, fintechs will take over.
Okay, Mahendra.
I think 30 seconds. I think every brand should keep the customer at the center and work backwards. if you try to implement a technology because you like it, you love it, and you want to force fit customer into that, it's gonna fail. If not sooner than later. I think brand should not be under any FOMO just because your competitor brand is doing something. You have to do it. Absolutely not. You do what is right for you. They are doing what's right for them. I think customers like bank as an organization are implementing new and technologies and doing a lot of stuff. Even the consumers is upgrading himself, herself, and getting tech savvy and adapting tech. So even they are doing their bit. So technology should be used as an enabler rather than technology being the front end, so to speak, right? Keep your systems, your processes human-centered, human-centric. Use technology to automate, to reduce cost, to give better service, better turnaround times, but without removing the human element is my submission.
Okay.
30 seconds.
So tech as an enabler.
So I'm going to use an example, and while we get very excited about GenAI, I'm going to use an example. How many of you here have been impacted by COVID? If you can just raise your hand. I got COVID, almost everyone did. So I always pay my credit card bills on time. I'm a pay. I don't let the bank earn any interest on the credit card payments. I got COVID in October 2020. My credit card payment, and I'm not named the brand here, was due on the 5th of October. 6th of October, I got a call saying, sir, your payment is due. I said, oops, I'm so sorry, I forgot. I'm down with COVID. I'll make the payment immediately. The lady on the other side said, oh, so sorry to hear that. I hope you're doing okay now. I said, yeah, I am. I'll be able to make the payment. She said, don't worry. You can make it at your convenience. There'll be no late fee charges that you'll have. There'll be no interest charges you'll have. The day a bot can do that, we're there. All right? And the empathy she demonstrated by saying, hold on, sir, I hope you're feeling better now. I hope you're not in the hospital, blah, 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 was phenomenal. And I am a loyalist of that bank. I'm sure all of you may be able to figure out which bank I'm talking about. But that's where we need to ultimately land up at, empathy. That enhances customer experience much more than whatever financial benefits that can be given. Right?
That human touch part. Great. Thanks. With that, we come to an end of the first panel discussion. What I would like to do, we would like to recognize all the bankers here for their role in technology deployments in banks, but we will do it after Angira's presentation. So I'd request all of you to remain on stage. Angira, you can do your presentation, and after that, we will have the recognize the felicitation.
I wanted to hear Ali's example of the email.
On the
Sure.
response part. So the response, see, first email that you will be given in 24 hours is, it's an acknowledgement that we have received it. And along with that, you will get your ticket number, right? For your future references. That's an instant thing. While they work, so some of the solutions are RSTP. Some require certain actions which may require to review certain things, may take 24 hours. If you need your balance statement, you will get it instantly, right? But still, the first 24-hour statement is then acknowledgement, sir, we have received your, this is your ticket number. So it is.
We are working on it.
Yeah, can't GenAI also at the same time give me a response saying this is because it can pull data from anywhere in the ecosystem?
As I think we discussed that GenAI, we do not want to expose at this point of time the financial transactions indirectly. So I think we have a long way to go. Yeah. So, yeah.
Response won't be.
Okay, so
And it has to be sent from the authentic ID to the authentic ID. So there are multiple compliance related items.
So Angira's presentation is also on the similar line. Empowering managed services in BFSI, harnessing technology to deliver impactful customer engagement.